So to quickly give some context about the clips at the very beginning, we have to rewind and talk about why we were walking on the road this morning. So yesterday, before the vlog ended, I mentioned that we had a 2-kilometer walk back to the hotel. Last night before bed, we heard this rumbling, and Mal was like, "Steven, there are tanks outside." And I didn't get any clips of this because I was like, let me get my camera, and Mal was like, maybe not. Maybe don't do that. But we looked outside.
It was actually your bowels.
We looked outside and there were tanks rolling down the street because, again, they're getting ready to do the military parade. There were tanks, there were missile launchers, and then we went to bed, but we were told afterwards that there was actually like a ton of like infantrymen, like actually
there was also people with like flowers or something, and the other people in our group asked the guide about it in the morning.
Yeah.
And he said, remember how he said that people, like so many people are allowed in during the ceremony to the Forbidden City with flowers? So those people were there too, practicing.
Yeah.
And then there were some people in white attire that
were
all lined up, and then suddenly they all started running at the same time.
Well, there was buses. There was like bus after bus after bus that must have gone for like 10 minutes long. Like I would swear there was 50 buses, big, not like city buses, the big tour buses, just running down the street. Nobody else in the street except buses, and then infantrymen standing every 50 feet on both sides at attention, not moving. In the middle of the night. It was so weird.
Yeah, that was actually the way it was when we woke up because you know, the worries of the hotel and the worries of our tour guide that they wouldn't be able to pick us up at the hotel was true. So we had to re-walk that 2 kilometers that we walked last night to get close enough to where they could pick us up. And it was creepy. Whenever we first got... it was
just stayed there when they dropped us off.
Yeah,
Right
just slept right at the bus stop. It was 4 in the morning, and when we exited our hotel, there were military people posted on both sides of the street every 50 feet. And it was like that for about half of the walk until we finally turned a corner and went in another different direction. And it was bizarre. It was really bizarre. And we just had to follow, you know, our guide as he led us closer and closer to the bus. But eventually we were able to get on the bus, and the bus
didn't even make it all the way.
Yeah, the bus had some issues trying to get out of the little blockade area too. But eventually, the bus picked up a different guide, who took us to the airport, got us through Beijing. We went Beijing to Shanghai, Shanghai to O'Hare, and it is it's now like 7 p.m.
Bedtime.
Bedtime. The jet lag is hitting us pretty hard. Some of us worse than others. Mark,
I think it's genetic.
Yeah. Mark and Mal are having a really hard
all
time.
Very loopy.
Very loopy. It's the most fun we've had the whole trip.
We're trying to stay awake for just a little bit longer.
We have 3 lights on?
Yeah, it's super dark, but we're back now. We were up for like 24 hours, and now it's past that. And we didn't really sleep a whole lot on the plane.
Why didn't you sleep, Steven?
I mean, I was playing through the entirety of Dragon Quest II, and I beat it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that was why, and it was fine. Mark watched like 5 movies.
I watched like 3.
Did you?
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, that was...
about half of my puzzle book.
Oh yeah, the puzzle books.
Rhonda's a pro.
Yeah, she is.
No. I just fill in things, and if they're right, they're right. If they're not, no one knows.
But now we're back, and tomorrow Mal and I will have to start our trek back home, which is exciting because earlier we went to put something in the car and the car's dead, and I'm like, that's not supposed to be dead. You're supposed to be alive, especially since we just put a new battery in it
And alternator.
and alternator. So I don't know what's wrong, but we'll jump it in the morning and then go from there. But I figured it'd be a good time to talk about China a little bit and kind of have a little bit of a reflection while we're with Mark and Rhonda.
Monkey.
And Monkey.
You're fine. You're so precious.
The girls were very excited to see us. Because obviously, you know, since you guys were on the trip, you have opinions as well. I'm curious, right off the bat, what your favorite thing was. Because I have opinions about this.
We should let the viewers know that not only was it a 13-hour flight to get there initially, or a bus ride first to Chicago, 13-hour flight, and then then what do? We flew again to get on a ship. We did a river cruise, and then after the river cruise we flew to another city, and after that city we flew to another city, and then we had to fly to Beijing, and then Beijing to Shanghai, and then Shanghai we were on a plane and boats so much. It was constant go.
Yeah, there was a lot of travel, like a lot of travel for this trip.
It was
things that
enjoyable.
impressed me the most that I wasn't expecting is that there are major cities like Shanghai and Beijing that everyone's heard about. And then there are cities more centrally in China that are even larger that I've never heard of.
Like Chongqing.
Chongqing and Xi'an, which are over 30,000 people.
No, like 10 million.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
They're in the millions.
like 30 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Chongqing specifically was 30 million.
Just crazy huge, and how people live there is so different than how we live in the U.S.
You think about a U.S. city, like when we were flying into Chicago, and you see people. I'm sure you've all flown quite a bit, or maybe not. But when you fly over, you see spans of just neighborhoods, houses and parks and golf courses. You fly over Shanghai, China, anywhere, you're in there, you're on a bus, you're driving around, you're walking, everything's straight up and down. There's no expansion.
There's no suburbs.
No suburb. Everything's tall. Everything's hugely tall. Tens of millions of people living in a smaller spot than, like, I don't know how to say it, but like the size of Chicago, these cities are 10 times bigger than Chicago, but it's all tall. It's beautiful.
And how much
clean,
is done?
very clean.
Yeah, and how much has been built recently? Because like when we went to the Bund on the first day, the guide was like, all of this across the river here was built in 20 years, the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean,
Shanghai specifically was built, or most of Shanghai was built in like the last 20 years, the one side of the city. Living in the US and having visited New York and having visited Seattle and all these other cities, there is nothing that even begins to compare to the scope of a city like Chongqing. Like, holy crap, like it just keeps going and going and going. And whenever the tour guide said that they had like 13,000 bridges, the first time that they said that, you're like, well, that was a mistake. And then you start driving and you're like, this isn't a mistake, this city is crazy. The city is like the size of a state, and it's like a US state, but it's just nothing but buildings
And bridges.
The population.
and bridges. Yeah.
What was everyone's favorite day? Like with what we did?
The Great Wall was way more than I expected it to be. I pictured, it's going to be up on a hill or maybe on some flat ground, and it's going to be like a rolling, maybe some steps and some cement that you walk up and just kind of roll. But it was steep, and it was steps, and their steps were 2 feet, some were 4 inches, some were 12 inches, and it just went forever, and it was so steep. Mallory and I have kind of an issue with height, and we got maybe 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way up one side, and just sitting to rest on the steps, it was so steep looking down that we both kind of got weak legs and said, no, that's enough for us. But Stephen and my wife Rhonda, they went up the other side, which was even steeper, and they made it all the way to the top. But it was beautiful, way more than I expected the Great Wall to be.
Me and Rhonda were actually talking a little bit about that, how our idea of the wall was that you walk up initially and then it's flat. And it wasn't like that at all. I mean, it was much more difficult. And I mean, there's also sections too, because even the section that we were at, there was the other end of the parking lot kind of seemed more like what I had envisioned, and I think that they were taking some of the other groups there. They took our group to the one that was more difficult, but it was a workout. But it was so cool to see.
Also knowing that it was the first emperor of China that commissioned that wall to be built, or not even commissioned, really just made his soldiers build it.
Yeah.
And also had the terracotta soldiers built for his tomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the amount of work and detail that went into both of those huge projects just was mind-blowing to me.
Mm-hmm.
The scope of those projects is incredible, and if you see any of it on the videos, you'll appreciate at least some of it. And it wasn't all built during his empire, but to think of the power that one man had to have all this created for him and for his country is just incredible.
That boy, because when he
yeah.
became the emperor, I think he was 13, which is wild. I think the other thing that I liked about this trip in comparison to some of the other trips that we've taken together is that, like, Greece was beautiful, and I one of the reasons I love Greece was because of the history. And I like China for that same reason, but China's history is so old. Like, it just goes back forever and ever. Like, China's been around for such a long time. And it's so fascinating. Like, whenever you go to Beijing and they're like, Beijing has been the capital for 800 years. And you're like, okay, so right off the bat, that's hundreds of years older than our entire country. And they're like, yeah, but it's been a city for 3,000. That's forever. Like, you can't even begin to fathom 3,000 years, and people have been living and thriving in that city for that long. The Tiananmen Gate with Chairman Mao's photo on it really encapsulates China to me. Like, that and the Great Wall, I think, are the two defining factors. And getting a chance to walk through there, especially because we were there at this really pivotal point in history when they're getting ready to celebrate their 70th year. That was just a really cool experience.
Oh my God, Chinese food in China. Oh my God, we're excited about the food. A bit disappointing. I'm speaking for myself. These people here may say the same thing. We had plenty of food to eat. I mean, they would not stop bringing out food. We would eat, go to lunch, go to dinner, and there would always be a table of eight people, and in the middle of the table is a big glass rotating
Lazy
Susan, and they kept bringing out food. And they put one plate on there, we'd scoop a little bit out and spin it to the next person, spin it, and then they bring out another, and then all of a sudden 3 people were bringing out plates. Eventually there was 12 plates of food, kept piling, 3 deep on this rolling, and we're all trying to eat, and oh my God, but it wasn't that good.
The amount of food that was exemplary that really stood out was really few.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. There were some things that were,
the Peking duck was
really good.
Really good.
The dumplings where we went to that one restaurant were really good.
Yeah.
There was some shrimp one of the days I loved. The bao at the first hotel were amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, the food, I think one of the reasons that you might feel like this about the food, because I think this is the reason I feel, is that the food on the boat was overall very bad.
Yes, it was.
And because that was several days in a row and it was in the middle of the trip, I think it painted the food overall worse than it actually ended up being. And I think it was just because there weren't any meals on the boat that were particularly great, especially the lunch part, the buffet part. And I never filmed myself trying winter melon.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. There was this really weird it's a melon, and they had it cut into strips.
It looked like sushi to me.
It looked, well, it was
clear.
it was it was boiled or something, and it was gelatinous, and we actually
White, but kind of translucent.
Yeah.
Way.
And we actually have some folks on our Discord some viewers of ours that have family in China and spend time in China, and they're like, that's super weird, and no one has ever served winter melon like that, so we don't know why it was served like that. I'm like, okay.
There's at least 3 people on Discord, from what I was thinking of the other day. I was like,
That mentioned that. So that might not have been the best example, but that was like, there occasionally I would see something odd and I would try it. Not anything that was like crazy out there, but stuff that was like, I don't know what this is, I'm going to try it. And most of the times I did, like there was a lot of times where I was like, this just has no flavor.
Yeah.
That was the big thing, is that a lot of stuff just didn't have any flavor.
Just on the boat.
But again, that's a lot of it was on the boat. So
I also really enjoyed getting to interact with people, even though I speak absolutely no Chinese.
yeah.
But like, even with that language barrier, like the day we were in Yichang at the dam, and like the kids kept coming up to Steven to get pictures, and like it was like it for all of us the whole trip. Other people in the group, there were kids coming up, families coming up getting pictures. The day we were at the Beijing Zoo, some parents sent their like 5-year-old over to Steven to practice his English and then take a picture with him.
Yeah.
Touch on a lot of all those
Yeah,
experiences.
when we were at the zoo too, Mark and I were standing near our meeting place where our group would meet, and there was a young boy that came up to me and he said in English, "How are you?" And I said, "Ding ding hao," or "Ding ding hao," and he ran away from me back to his dad. And that just means very, very good. I thought I would respond to him in a language he could understand. And it was just really cute how hard they try to communicate. And then his dad came up to me and was speaking in Chinese. I didn't understand him either. But then he made the gesture like this, pointed to his son. I said, sure, So it was kind of fun to see how people respond to foreigners there.
And we were told before we left for the trip through a friend of Rhonda's that, if you're blonde, if you have blue eyes, if you're tall, if you're, just whatever different you have, that all these Chinese people, tens of millions of them that have never been to the States, they've never seen a, American before, they will actually pull you out of the crowd and want to take a picture with you. They will, they will gawk at you, they will look at you, they'll all be like taking videos of you. And I'm like, what, really? It happened every day for all of us. It was amazing. Now, there was many times where Steven, because of his height, people were just a group of college type kids were on a big outing. There must have been 40, 50 of them. Almost every one of them wanted their picture taken with Steven. And once in a while they wanted to take a picture at Rhonda. We were walking at the Summer Palace on one of our side trips, and one young girl chased me down, grabbed me by the arm, and wanted me to come back and take a picture with her grandfather. I don't know why. we were like celebrities, and there's so many buses. We were on our tour bus sometimes going from point A to point B, and we'd be through a big city. Going stoplight, a bus would go past us, and all the Chinese people going to work or coming back from work would go past us. They'd see us in our window, they'd all start looking, and they'd all start talking to each other, and then all of a sudden we get to a stoplight, and we'd catch back up to them, and they were all standing up with their cameras taking pictures. It was the weirdest feeling, and it was really strange.
I don't think that on the vlog I ever even talked about the dam or showed the pictures, so I have to make sure I show the pictures. But yeah, a few days in to the trip, when we were on the river cruise portion, we stopped at the Three Gorges Dam, and while we were there was a huge group of high schoolers or something there. I think they were there for a school trip, and they were trying to get photos with me, and we got some photos of them taking photos with me. But like Mark said, that was the beginning of that. Like, it started happening pretty regularly, and it was interesting, especially
Everyone was super kind, like,
yeah.
and there's some people who are doing it kind of like sneaky, like with just you in the background.
Yeah.
That was funny too.
Yeah.
A lot of it was overt, where they would just pull you and say, can I have a picture with you in sign language. But a lot of it also was just people walking in front of you and pretending that they were taking selfies with like Stephen in the background. It's very obvious, but
Yeah.
they weren't.
Yeah.
They were trying to be subtle.
Yeah, some of them were more subtle than others. Some of them were like very good about kind of staying in the background, and then there was one or two people that just like walked around and filmed us like barnyard animals.
A lot of the time.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly,
Exactly how we felt. There was so much of that going on.
A few times, because I would be standing behind Steven, people would tap me on the shoulder and then point to Steven and be like, look how tall he is. And I'm like, I know how tall he is.
Yeah, and there was a few times, actually, I think at least two of them were in an elevator where we'd be standing next to each other, and someone would look at us and they'd start to like laugh, and they'd point at me and say up here, and then they'd point to Mal and say down here and keep laughing, and I'd go, and then they'd just keep laughing.
Meet in the middle.
Yeah, that was funny, the height difference that we had. I gotta say, I enjoyed the trip. I particularly enjoyed getting a chance to take off the veil of what I assumed China was.
Yeah.
Because I
It was
didn't.
fascinating in that respect, because just like from our media, what we know about China, or from the internet, what we know about China, and then to actually be there, it was just very fascinating to see how it actually is.
Yeah. Throughout the entire trip, I kept thinking, man, there's a lot of police.
Yeah.
There are a lot of police, because there was a lot obviously near the end, because Beijing was doing their whole military parade thing. But even in like Shanghai and Xi'an and the other big cities, there are so many more uniformed officers than you would ever see in the States. And I know that our tour guide was saying a lot of them are actually security guards. And he said the military police get hired out as security, but it's like everywhere had security, and there was so much police presence, and like everywhere and camera. There was surveillance like all over the place.
I mean, you could not walk. I'm just going to put a number out there: 25 feet without being on 25 cameras.
Yeah.
That's we're not exaggerating it. Every light pole, every tree, they had cameras going this way, the spot cameras were everywhere. I'm not talking just on the corners, down the streets, alleys, buildings, inside, outside, cameras everywhere.
One of the little improvements I've never seen in a US city, we might have them somewhere, but I noticed in a lot of places in China, is that the stoplights have countdowns. And I'm like, why don't we have that? That's great. Like a crosswalk would have.
Yeah, exactly.
And the red light has a countdown of like how long until it's going to be green. And the green has a countdown and how long it's going to be until it's yellow. And yellow has a countdown. I'm like, this is great. We should have this. There's a lot of little improvements and stuff. Anyway.
It's bedtime.
No, it is not bedtime.
I'm falling asleep here on the couch now.
Everyone is very tired.
Not everyone.
This is everybody's being awake in the same clothes for 30 hours look.
Yes.
I think we look pretty good.
Well, speak for yourself, Stephen, you gorgeous man, you.
I mean, I feel disgusting, but I don't feel.
But
I don't feel like
my teeth already though. Just
Oh, well, that's cheating. I haven't done that.
Me either.
So yeah, we're gonna get some sleep. Hopefully, a lot of it. There's no guarantee.
But not for at least an hour and a half.
Shut up, Rhonda.
What? There's more to this broadcast.
And then in the morning, we are driving back to Chaz and Jeff's and staying with them tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow we'll give driving a shot and see how that goes.
We don't even know what is today and what is tomorrow.
No.
Yeah.
No, because
we'll film getting the Ford running.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be fine. I don't know that, but I'm hopefully with any luck. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, let's meet back tomorrow, shall we?